Hello and welcome to CBD Nuggets. My name is Brian Altman. I'm going to spend a little time talking about what's new in SharePoint 2016 for IT pros. There's been so much going on in SharePoint 2016, we can't cover everything. So I'm going to focus specifically on the IT pro world. As I said, my name is Brian Altman. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Microsoft Certified Trainer, or MCT, MCSE SharePoint / Office 365, also an MCSE in an earlier version of Windows, PMP, EIL. Lots of options or lots of acronyms after my name. I spent a lot of time speaking at SharePoint conferences. If you want to keep track of what I'm doing and any announcements I make regarding SharePoint 2016 or Office 365, you can follow me on Twitter at Brian Altman. I'm also on LinkedIn using this account here. And if you're not already following us, we can be followed at CBT Nuggets using this handle here on Twitter. Now, we're going to be focusing on the sysadmin guy, and that's pretty much what I'm looking like today, except for I have blue glasses up here, and I have a blue tie just so they're color coordinated. Otherwise, that's what most of our SharePoint admins look like. Now, before we dig into the idea of SharePoint 2016, we need to put the brakes on. We need to step back. We need to talk about how the heck did we get to SharePoint 2016? Well, it began way back in 2001. I think I was about 3 years old then. Yeah, I wish. And that was the Portal Server 2001. Then it went to 2003. By the way, I knew nothing to the left of this line right here. I didn't even know how to spell SharePoint. I was an SQL Server person. I knew how to spell SQL, so I was really content with that. Then someone mentioned the idea of checking out SharePoint because most everything we do in SharePoint lives in SQL. That got my attention. So starting in SharePoint 2007, I started working with SharePoint, pretty much focusing on SharePoint. It was called MOS back then, Microsoft Office Services Server or something like that. And then I was so excited I worked with it in 2010 and in 2013. In fact, I have co-authored 2 MS Press books on SharePoint 2010, one on SharePoint 2013 that you can find on Amazon if you're looking for some night reading material. And at that point, we had SharePoint Server 2010 and SharePoint Server 2013. And these 2, or 3 flavors actually, offered what was called a foundation flavor of SharePoint. And you know one thing about the foundation flavor of SharePoint that I really love? It was free. Now, the bad news is that free version is no longer available in SharePoint Server 2016. It is only SharePoint Server 2016, so you don't have the free flavor to work with. What if you're running 2007? Can you just go from 2007 all the way over to 2016 because you're going to be so excited to do so when we end the session? No, you can't. We can only do a direct upgrade from 2013 to 2016. So if you're running 2007, you need to hop to 2010, and then you need to hop from 2010 to 2013, and then you can go to 2016. If you're running 2010, you need to hop to 2013, and then you can go to 2016. So that's going to be your upgrade process. And the reason I'm drawing your attention to that, I had heard way back when 2016 was first announced, that there might be a straight shot from a previous versions. Whether it be 2010, I think they were only going to go back as far as 2010. Well, bottom line, didn't happen. So to get to SharePoint 2016, we need to use a 2-step process from 2007, a 1-step process, I should say a 3-step process from 2007, 2-step process from 2010, and then 1 jump or 1-step hop from 2013. Now, before we freak out, if you're running 2007, there's eval versions of both 2010 and 2013. I think they're about 180 days. You can just go in and grab those, download those babies, and you can use those for your migration from 2007 to 2010. Use the eval version from 2010 to 2013, and then use the real live version from 2013 to 2016. So that's going to be your upgrade process, and that's the information regarding the evolution of SharePoint. Now, because we have limited time, there's just a few things that we're going to talk about, and I grabbed the 3 most important things that I want to talk about. First thing I want to talk about is the logical architecture. As you can see, this illustration is showing SharePoint 2013 farm. I'm going to pencil in 2016 because the logical architecture has not changed. We still have our list and libraries and items and documents. In fact, I'm working on a SharePoint 2016 course right now called the Collaboration Experts for SharePoint 2016. After that, we have our subsites. I'll have another course for the site owners for 2016, and then I'm going to work on a third course for Site Collection Administrators for 2016. So those are my 3 next courses I'm working for or working on here at CBT Nuggets. Once Microsoft announces its exam strategy, which I'm hearing is supposed to be this summer, then I'll be working on the admin courses. Normally we have a core solutions and advanced solutions. We'll see what they do when it comes to that time. But when it comes to the actual architecture itself, not much has changed. We still have our web apps. We still have application pools. We have our farm. We have service applications. By the way, a few changes there. The Excel services that used to be part of the service applications in SharePoint 2013, toast. Gone. No longer part of SharePoint 2016. However, they did move it to the Office web apps, or what's now called the Office Online Server. So you still have the functionality, but it requires the integration of Office Online Server. Project Server is now a service application. Project Server is integrated with SharePoint Server 2016. It's no longer a separate SKU, which means it's one less check that you need to write to Microsoft. There have been enhancements to the Access Services service application, and as always, every release of SharePoint always has some enhancements, specifically optimization and integration with the search server application. Otherwise than that, we have our normal databases for the config database and, of course, the central admin database. We have our service app DBs, and we have our web app DBs. SQL Server 2016, if you haven't heard the news, was just announced released, is going to ship June 1st. I've been working with the release candidate for the last month. I had heard rumors that it's going to be releasing sometime this month. They missed it by a day. It's June 1st. So that will be SQL Server 2016 RTM on June 1, in case you're wondering where that stands. So that's the logical architecture, and from a central admin standpoint, not a lot has changed in there. We get one more functional category that we have to work with, and in addition to that, there are a few other options specifically regarding the MinRoles that we're going to see as we work through central admin. Speaking of MinRoles, that's the first option that I want to talk about of the 3 that I find most important in SharePoint Server 2016. We have 6 flavors. I love hot, fresh rolls right out of the oven. This is like making me hungry here. But these are MinRoles for SharePoint 2016. And when I speak MinRoles, there's one thing you need to worry about, and that is services. Because what a MinRole does is it optimizes and customizes the installation of SharePoint 2016 on that server. So I could have a multi-server farm. I could have 3 web front-end servers. I could have 2 search servers, one running distributed cache, one running my other service applications, will say managed metadata service, user profile service, secure store service. So as I'm installing SharePoint Server 2016, I identify the role I want it to play within my SharePoint farm. It goes out and it optimizes it by configuring the services that it needs for that specific role. Now, when it comes to optimization, if we use the custom role, this is probably the least optimized because it's going to allow you to configure anything or everything on that one server. And that's different because when I use search, search is going to be running just the search services. If I try to fake out SharePoint 2016 and install UPA on here, and I start the services, it's eventually going to have a timer job that's going to come along and do inventory, and it's going to say, whoa, 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 we have user profile services here running. We're not supposed to be running. This is a search server role. So it's going to stop those services. The customize gives you the most options to mishmash what you want to run on a single server, but it's also the least optimized. But I don't want you to panic. You're not stuck to working with that role throughout the life cycle, because what you can do is you can run the SharePoint Products Configuration Wizard, and you can change from search to application if you want to. Or you can use psconfig from the command prompt, or of course we have some PowerShell commands that we can use to change that role. So we have 3 different ways for identifying the role during deployment or changing that min role after we've deployed it. For additional information, this is going to be your friend down here. Check out this website right here. It's going to provide additional information on the use and configuration of MinRoles. So that's the first big deal. Our next big deal is the hybrid approach. That's the main reason we have a SharePoint Server 2016. If you recall, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, we weren't even sure there was going to be another SharePoint Server 2016. Microsoft was saying it's Office 365 SharePoint Online or it's nothing. Microsoft customers are saying, no, you give me an on-prem or it's nothing. So Microsoft listened. We now have a hybrid configuration option available right out of Central Admin, and it's going to allow you to manage the OneDrive for Business file and synchronization. It's going to allow you to integrate the app launcher. If you've seen this in Office 365, it's simply a way for us to navigate between our sites on-prem and within Office 365. So I'm not stuck to one or the other. So we can use this app launcher, which is extensible for allowing us to add additional topics or items within the app launcher. And lastly, search. This has always been a big deal. If you're running SharePoint Server 2016, or if you're running SharePoint Server 2013, Service Pack 1, cumulative update from January 2016. Let me say that one more time. SharePoint Server 2013, Service Pack 1, CU, January 2016, you'll be able to take full advantage of the new functionality offered by the hybrid search. And what this does that's different than what we've seen before is that we now have one index here that hangs out in Office 365. We have content coming in from Office 365 into that index. We have content from our on-prem coming in. We create one single index. We do a query for a particular topic. It's going to return one result page with results from both Office 365 and SharePoint on-prem. So big changes there. Great product, easy to roll out. And for additional information on the hybrid situation that they've introduced in SharePoint 2016 with Office 365, check out that site that we have below. My third topic, which is what I think is really also very neat, and that is the use of patching. Patching is completely different than what we used to do before. We used to have downtime. Maybe with July 4th coming up, you're planning on taking the weekend to patch SharePoint 2013 to another version, to an upgrade, to a CU, to a service pack. Well, with SharePoint 2016, it has a two-step patch process. The first is applying the patches, and the second is performing what's called the build-to-build upgrade. So I can actually just kind of pull this guy out of the farm and perform a two-step process within step one. One is to perform the patch deployment, and then two is to deploy the new binaries. And then what I'll do is I'll swing up to step 2 of the patch deployment process and perform that build-to-build upgrade. And within there, it modifies the database schema. It updates your farm objects, and it updates site collections. Speaking of which, when you upgraded from SharePoint 2010 to 2013, you had the option of deferring the site collection upgrade. Remember, we could actually upgrade the backend to SharePoint 2013 and leave our site collections in SharePoint 2010. That option is toast. All of our site collections that are going to be upgraded to SharePoint 2016 have to be at SharePoint 2013. All of those site collections will end up at SharePoint 2016 when the upgrade occurs. That deferred site collection upgrade process is no longer available. So again, for additional information on what Microsoft has called zero downtime processing, I think they're recalling it, is available here at this website. But those are the three key areas that I think we're going to be finding helpful for us as SharePoint admins. There are a couple more I just couldn't skip by though. So let's go in here and talk about a couple of these that are kind of end user and IT pro characteristics. For instance, file names can now contain all of these characters. So they can be greater than 128 characters. The guy right there can contain those huge GUIDs the size of Texas, and had all these characters can now be part of a file name, and that will be allowable for an upgrade. The size of our files that we can store inside of SharePoint goes from 2 gigs to 10 gigs. That's big news. When we're creating site collections, if we're going to create multiple site collections, we want to create them faster, reducing the number of round trips between SQL Server and SharePoint. We can use a PowerShell command called SP Site Master to create those. Of course, Microsoft is all about mobile navigation. Their new logo is having the intranet in your pocket. So there were several enhancements to the mobile navigation. We now have what are called durable file links. If I have a file inside of SharePoint and I want to move that or I want to rename that, It's already been assigned a durable file link, so if I've shared that with others, doesn't matter where I move or rename that in SharePoint, that link will always point to the location of that file. So that's sweet for our end users as well. Central Admin, in previous versions, it was installed on every server that we installed SharePoint on. No longer the case. It's installed once on the initial server that we create the farm with. After doing so, if we want Central Admin on yet another machine, we need to issue a couple PowerShell commands, and we can have Central Admin on other machines in our farm. And lastly, we have file system support for REFS. This allows us to store content for SharePoint within that file system. So a few other items that are relevant to both business end users and our IT pros that I want to share with you because I felt they were important and going to be helpful for your end users after you deploy SharePoint 2016. So these are the changes that I want you to be aware of in SharePoint Server 2016 as you think about the deployment. Now, I didn't forget my end users, that's these guys over here, nor did I forget my developers, because there's a list of all of the changes in SharePoint 2016 that's available at this site right here. So you'll want to check that out for all of the changes introduced in SharePoint 2016. And there's an online conference called SharePoint 2016 in the Future of SharePoint, and that is available for registration at this link here. This is going to be held May 4th at 9:30 Pacific time. It's about an hour and 45 minutes, so I block out 2 hours or so. And that's going to talk about where Microsoft's head is regarding SharePoint 2016 and the future of SharePoint. And I heard there's going to be some great big announcements in that session. So please be sure to attend that tomorrow. If not, I'm sure it'll be recorded. My guess is the link for that recording will be available from that site that I've underlined here on the slide as well. So if you can, attend that on May 4th. Otherwise, grab the recording at a later date. Well, at this point, we have time for Q&A. I'm looking at my interface here. I do not see any Q&A coming in. So I want to personally thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining us here at CBT Nuggets. I hope you found this information helpful. And if you have any questions, please contact me at brian.alderman@cbtnuggets.com. Again, please follow me at Brian Alderman on Twitter, or we can connect on LinkedIn and keep in touch that way. Thank you very much for joining us here at CBT Nuggets, and I look forward to seeing you in one of my SharePoint 2016 classes in the near future.